Yo, it's your boy Uncle Pre with another episode of the Unfiltered Podcast. This week we have got Kiren in the studio and she has been a busy bee. Been trying to get this sorted in for a while. We spoke about it last year, but she's here in the studio today. Kiren, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's such a gorgeous setup.
People, before we get into it, she's just been so gassed with like the cameras and she's loving the glow and all sorts right now.
Everything is just, we thank God.
Oh,
we thank the ancestors.
It's going to be one of those kind of episodes today. Kiren, I think from like the first time I got to know you, I think what you're doing on your journey is very different to what you're doing right now. So why don't you give everyone a little introduction?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we met years ago during lockdown via Clubhouse.
Yep.
And I remember joining a conversation because my friend added me in and it was about interracial relationships,
Yep.
which is really interesting because my platform at the time was all about interracial relationships, support, dating, advice, guidance because of my own story and my own background. So I developed a platform called The Modern Couple, for all of those reasons, because I was in an interracial relationship with an African man. And as you can imagine, like with all the cultural implications that surround that from both sides, it was quite a challenging environment to navigate. And I just remember thinking and Googling for hours, like, am I a bad person? Like, how do I navigate this with my family? And like all these questions constantly going around in my head. And I literally had no support. There was no one really in my position that could guide me within my friendship circle, within my family space, because of their own personal views. And it was just really hard. And I felt like through having therapy to kind of deal with the amount of anxiety and depression that I had, because essentially what kind of transpired is that my parents were like, we're going to disown you if you carry on going down this path. And that was really hard for me because I didn't know how to navigate that landscape. You know, I was a very young adult. This was my first serious relationship. And I wasn't dating based on color. I was dating based on love. And I was in a relationship with this man for that same reason. And so it was about trying to navigate that. And I remember in particular this one session that I had with my therapist, and he was like, why don't you transform your pain into helping other people? And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna try. And literally it took me 5 years to have the courage to do that. Because then I realized like I don't want anyone else to feel the way that I felt. And what kind of came about from our sessions was like, you're feeling these deep emotions, you're feeling all of this sadness and darkness because you're torn between what you want and what your parents want for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was such a big aha moment for me. And I know, especially within the South Asian community, and I feel like African community as well.
In all communities,
like that.
Yeah.
Particularly for people of colour, I feel, where there's such rich cultures and there's all of these kind of unsaid expectations. Sometimes they're said, they're like, listen, no BMWs. And you're like, listen. You just know. It's like one of those things that you get brought up, right?
For those who don't know what... Nah, I'm not going to get into BMWs. Just Google
That's
a wild one.
Urban Dictionary.
That's a wild one. No, I hear you.
But yeah, and... So it took me some time. I was doing a lot of healing and inner work, and my parents came round after a lot of work within myself and just to build up my own confidence, my own self-esteem. And, you know, I think they also went on their own journey and had to unlearn their conditioning too. And so I'm really proud of them because we have such a beautiful relationship now. Yeah. But I'm very aware that this isn't going to be the case for everyone. And this has literally been years in the making, like, 8 years nearly. Yeah. So it can be a lot. And so since that relationship and after my parents did accept it, I kind of started to notice the stress just leave my body, like physiologically, spiritually, mentally, like a weight was vastly lifted from my shoulders. And it was then that the veil had also lifted from my face and I could see the cracks in my relationship. You know, just the lack of support that was there amongst so many different things that I had just been settling for and accepting because I just didn't have the strength to walk away. Yeah. And so in that end of the relationship, and I'm very grateful for that relationship. This person wasn't a bad person, but we were very young when we first started to date each other, and be in relationship with each other. And I think as you grow, you start to understand what kind of patterns are you mirroring of your parents, which was a huge aha moment for me. What's the stuff that you're settling for that you don't need to settle for?
Yeah.
And then more like, who am I? What do I really want from this relationship? Is this person actually able to give it to me? How am I communicating that? What's the stuff that I need to work on so I don't keep repeating these patterns or feeling frustrated or angry? So there was a lot of stuff to kind of unpack there. And so through that journey, the modern couple kind of changed and evolved to become Inner Glow with Kiren, because I realized that through that healing journey of my own and doing that inner work, the most important relationship that you have is the one with yourself, because it will set the tone for every single relationship that you have in your life.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, I love how you've gone through your own somewhat spiritual, physical, emotional journey to get to a place where you are right now, where just to dive more into Inner Glow of Kiren, you're helping people right now, aren't you?
Yes. I'm a qualified coach. I support people within their own self-love journey, but also within dating and relationships, whether it's interracial or otherwise. So that's been really, nourishing.
Let's just get juicy and straight into it. How are you doing this?
How am I doing?
How are you helping people?
What do you mean?
How are you helping people? Someone's going to listen to this and be like, all right, okay, cool, Kiren, I'm going through X, Y, Z right now. Yeah. Help me. How are you helping people?
It. Well, I guess I put out a lot of stuff on my platform, and then there's a basis where you can work with me one-to-one.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm really excited because I'm going to launch a 6-week self-love bootcamp. And it's going to be a group kind of course and activity that we go through together, dropping some real gems in there. But I think it is so important when you are going through these enormous life changes or having that journey of self-discovery, that you have community around you, like-minded individuals that are going to fuel you, not take you away from the essence of who you are. Yeah. And sometimes I think the company that you keep might also be minimizing who you are.
I hear you. Talking about minimizing, if I go back to like when you first started talking about like the modern couple and that relationship, I think 2 words you said were disown you. It's something I feel that still, albeit society has changed, it's still like very, very much apparent that it's a problem with a number of communities. If you don't follow, i.e. the guidelines that your parents had to follow or whatever your culture or traditions have taught you, this kind of shit can pop off in terms of we're going to disown you if you don't do X, Y, Z.
Completely.
How have you managed to navigate your way through that? Because I think from a child's perspective, and I can't speak for everyone, but I'd like to feel we don't want to disappoint our parents. Yeah. But to know that we can't live our lives the way it's just happened to be, and to get told that, we're going to get disowned on the back end of it, that's fucked.
Completely.
How have you got through that?
Really great question. I would say a lot of therapy, a lot of inner work. I would also say having an experience like that is not something that I would wish on anyone, because it completely loses your sense of self, your sense of safety. The fact that you no longer feel safe within yourself or within your own family dynamic, because anything can change. And that was kind of the environment that I was living in for a really long time. And I was still living at home at this point. And navigating through that, it's about, and I keep speaking about the inner work because it's so important to start looking at what are your own thoughts and beliefs versus the ones that you've adopted? Yeah. What do you actually value versus what your parents value? And I always say, with my dad especially, like, we can have different opinions and still coexist, Dad. Yeah. I still love you. Because I do. I love my parents a lot. Yeah. I just didn't love what they did. Yeah. And I think that's the difference. It is. And I like how you've put it, because like parents, grandparents, whoever they are, they're going to have their opinions. And truthfully, we haven't lived their lives. We've been part of their journey, but we didn't have to go through whatever traumas or disturbing stories that they had to experience once upon a time. Hence why they've got these views, etc. Yeah. Respectfully though,
the world has modernized and we have moved on and times have changed.
Yeah.
And I suppose it is finding that healthy balance between the two and being respectful and understanding where they may be coming from, but not letting that trample over who you are and what you stand for.
Yeah, completely. And I think one of the things that I really learned was boundaries,
Yeah.
and the fact that I had none back then. I think typically within our culture, we don't get taught about boundaries.
No, we don't get taught
really.
shit.
Like, we don't
We don't get taught a lot of stuff.
no, we don't. Like, it's sadly, it's one of those things that you end up learning over time if you choose to intentionally do that. And it's really interesting because I remember doing the therapy, doing the inner work, reading a lot. And I learned to have some compassion for my parents and like the values that they had and where they grew up and stuff like that. But at the same time, in the same breath, there's so many people who, when I did come out about my relationship and I was really going through it, who were like, oh, well, your parents aren't going to live forever. And you're like,
wow.
Really?
Wow.
Legit? Like,
That's so bad.
Are you mad? Like, how can you say that? And it's like, I get it if you've never had a good relationship with your parents or whatever it might be. But just the fact that someone thought that that was an appropriate thing to say just blew my mind. Because I was like, well, I want my parents in my life and I want to be living my life for me. So what does that look like? And I very much realized that any type of emotional abuse, physical abuse, emotional manipulation, just all of these things, they're all characteristics that someone might endure when they do come out, whether it's, you know, coming out as being gay or bi or whatever, or even when they come out about being in an interracial relationship. And so it's like, you have to be that parent to yourself.
Yep.
And be like, what am I going to put up with? Okay, if you're going to keep speaking to me like that, I'm going to walk away. If you're going to keep treating me like this, I'm not going to see you. I'm not going to keep visiting you. I'm not going to keep calling you, or I will move out. And I think you have to understand what environment you live in order to be able to do that. Because I'm very self-aware that there's people where there could be a lot of violence involved should they choose to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
And even having the capacity to feel safe enough to be who they are, in which case they would need a completely different level of support versus someone that's quite outspoken that can be like, actually, you know what? This isn't for me.
Yeah.
And the woman that you're seeing today was not the woman that was there like 8 years ago. I promise you, I'm completely different. And I don't stand for bullshit anymore because I'm like, just because I'm your child, and this goes with anyone, aunties, anyone that thinks they have a right to speak over someone's life when they have no business in doing that. You know, even people like your friends or whatever, acquaintances even. It's just like, just because I am me doesn't mean, and I'm loving and I'm kind and I will give you the grace to kind of express how you feel, doesn't mean that you get to mistreat me.
Yeah.
And if you do, then I will take myself out of that situation.
Yeah.
I don't need to stay. I love myself enough to move away from that now. Whereas before, I think there was a lot of people pleasing, a lot of working on myself because I felt like I wasn't good enough and therefore something needed to change. And I think it's just so much more empowering when you work on yourself from a place of love.
Yeah.
I love myself and I want to learn about myself even more. And that's what I'm trying to help people with and coaching through them with that.
I think like the best thing that you've said there, and it's kind of something I try and articulate to my clients, which it's like, it's nice you can say that, Pri, but it just doesn't work for me right now. You're not trying to be arrogant in regards to who you are and what you stand for. It's the self-discovery that you know who you are and what you stand for and what your values are. And unfortunately, if this isn't going to work, look, respectfully, I'm going to take myself out of that equation. And this is going to be the repercussions of it because we just can't coexist here and there. And it's sad we can't coexist. Fuck's sakes, let me put that on mute.
It's okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you get an email in between a podcast, but hey ho. But it's like one of those. It's one of those ones where what you've said right now, I really admire that because I try and just say that so often, but I feel like people just don't understand it from the angle of I'm not trying to be an arrogant douche, you know, I'm not trying to be a dick in regards to me just saying I feel like I'm better than you. It's just a case of I know who I am.
Yeah.
And respectfully, like, I know you may never see things the way I see things, and that's okay. You're not meant to. You don't need to get to a level where I'm at, because you might be at the best level that's best for you in your life. But don't ever try and make me feel like I need to conform to what you're telling me I should be doing, because that shit don't run anymore, unfortunately.
Or even less than.
Yeah.
Like if you express yourself in a certain way and someone puts you down for that, whether it's your emotions or something that you need from someone, and someone makes you feel like you're too much for that, I often find it's their discomfort that they're unable to sit with, not yours.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. It is their discomfort. I've had a number of situations where family and friends, well, not necessarily friends, family haven't really understood things. And my family are great, I'm not even going to lie. But it's like the small particular things in regards to like getting my ears pierced once upon a time, my nose pierced, tattoos. And all. It's like, guys, relax, man. It's my body. Let me do what I like. And it's like, what do you mean do what you like? And it's like, anyway, it is one of those stories. But I'm glad you're able to help discover that. And so if anyone listening and you're going through something, Kiren's always available. I like to think you're always available.
I'll give you all my handles.
There you go.
Yeah, you can reach out to me, DM me.
Boot camp pending. Come on.
Come on.
Let's go. One of the things we said we were going to try and touch base on was healing.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff that you've been doing, TikTok and Reels.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to butcher the way I say it, but it's like what you're doing with people in terms of, just elaborate on that, please, because it looks, I don't want to say it looks hella cool, but it looks very, very interesting in regards to like that kind of.
Are you speaking about the energy healing?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It was the way you did that.
Talk to me, this energy healing.
Oh, it's just so beautiful. So I also do Kundalini activations on
That's
people.
what it is. I didn't want to say that because I would butcher it. Say it again.
Kundalini
activation. Okay. Yeah. And what's it regards to?
It's so Kundalini is your life force energy.
Fine.
It's the energy that we all have that sits and resides and lays dormant within the base of our spine near our root chakra.
Okay.
And essentially what happens is that as a facilitator, I will channel high frequency energy. And what happens is that your Kundalini energy will recognize that and just kind of like a tuning fork. Fine. It will like recognize it and ping, ping, ping. It will start to vibrate higher and higher and higher. And in that, what happens is that your Kundalini is also symbolized as a coiled snake. So when it awakens, what it does is that it travels like through your
that's what I've been saying.
All the way to your spine, all the way to the top of your crown chakra and goes back down. And so it creates this flow of energy. And in that climbing, what it does is that it releases all of the things that don't serve you. So, you can find that the benefits include completion of trauma cycles, somatic movement, so allowing you to release energy physically from your body, but also deep states of bliss and joy. It's the feminine energy. So it connects you deeper with your intuition, your creativity, and just creating that sense of oneness that you are part of something greater. And I think the reason that I love this so much is because I've seen the profound impact it's had on my life and everyone that I've worked with so far, and just how it makes you realize that this material body that we're in is so insignificant because we're part of something so much more. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we're so focused on ourself and like the little pit that we're sitting in or whatever, it makes us really blinkered to the bigger picture. Yeah. So this allows you to look up, like breathe in more life and release and let go of anything and everything that no longer is working for you, whether it's your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns, your loops, your beliefs. And every transmission that you have, you allow yourself to go deeper and deeper within yourself. It's a journey of rediscovery, like to the true essence of who you are.
Where does it originate from?
Excuse me. I believe it originates from Hindu texts.
Okay, fine.
But it's not a religious thing.
Fine.
Because there are many people that I trained with who are Christian, for example, or that are more spiritual or that have specific beliefs. But this energy is within every single soul on this planet.
I feel like one thing that gets thrown around social media, and it's a number of things that come up to me when a potential client wants to speak to me.
Yeah.
What if it doesn't work?
What, in terms of the energy healing? Or
So I'm just they asked me in regards to like say coaching, but I'm talking about like what you're doing right now. What if they just don't, nothing happens? Do you ever get like that kind of backlash or something? Because never, no one's ever come up to you and been like,
I don't think it worked. No.
fair.
No, never.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that is because you'll see people having videos of like activations, and sometimes, you know, like when I have activations, the first time I did it, I was so in my head and I couldn't quieten down the volume up there, and I couldn't surrender to the process. I did this for the first time in Bali, by the way. I literally was at the gym the night before talking to a girl after we did our workout, like, how did you find the session? And she was like, oh, it was good, but I had to take it easy because I had a Kundalini activation. I was like, oh, what is that? And she briefly described it to me. I saw a couple of videos. I was like, yeah, this looks great. Like, let me book on. And now Sophie, who was the facilitator at the time and now my friend, she only had one slot left because I was flying out a few days after, and the next slot was the morning after.
Yeah.
And so I booked it and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
What have I got to lose? And so I went there, she explained the process, you know, what to expect, and that every expression is natural. And just the fact that even if you don't feel like anything's happening, it is on a deeper level. And so I was very in my head, and it was very much about, again, letting go of the mind and going into the body and just trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that is the thing that most of us struggle with. We don't trust ourselves enough. We don't know how to look inward. We don't know how to sit with ourselves. We're so busy on our phone, scrolling on social media, comparing ourselves with other people, you know, eating, drinking, smoking, whatever. When do we actually get time to just lie for an hour and be? Unless it's sleeping, you know?
The only reason why I'm asking that is because I've got mixed groups of friends, and some people might turn around and say, yeah, bro, that shit ain't gonna work. And for me, like, I feel like I've had a blend of different experiences through all of the friendships I've been in.
Yeah.
And when I've gone through different forms of, I say, therapy, coaching, all of the healing that I've done, when something works, I'm just like, raw, yo, that is nuts. The first time I did, like, this is gonna sound funny, I did like headspace meditations before I used to go to work. I used to feel like I was high.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, whoa, it's like euphoric, and am I tripping out? This is like hella weird.
Yeah.
Like, I've just sat there, listened to what, I think his name Andy, whoever owns it, Headspace, the way he taught me through, like, just going from the top of my head, reflecting down to the bottom of my body and doing some other exercises. I'm like, yo, this shit is mad.
Yeah.
And then since then, like, obviously you try different exercises, etc., and like, I've done NLP. And when I did that, and like I've spoken about it before, but when my practitioner did it with me, like, I think parts of it didn't really like connect with me. When the one time it did, oh, best believe, yo, I was crying my eyes out. It was fucked, but it was like so good, because the penny drop moment just made me realize what life could be like. But yo, I don't know what happened, but something just clicked, and I was like, oh shit, turn my camera off, and everyone there on the Zoom call is just like, yeah, it's working, it's not working, etc. Messaged me privately, and she's like to me, stay on at the end of the call, turn your camera on at the end of the call. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yo, I was
What happened?
Just like a lot of, I think that was like the tipping point in regards to my self-discovery journey.
Yeah.
It all happened when I was like doing my coaching stuff, and it was like part of the school, so I got quite lucky to get this this little experiment they were doing at the time. But yeah, when she started talking about like self-worth, and like, I don't know I don't know what exactly she was doing specifically, because I'm not an NLP practitioner, but it was like embedded with an element of a bit of physics, a bit of coaching. But it was I felt like nothing was working beforehand, but this, something she may have said or something my mind went to subconsciously, took me to a place, and I started bawling.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good. Like, since then, like, I've never looked back, and yeah, it's taught me a lot in regards to myself and my self-worth. So
I hear it. And like, it's so interesting that you say that, just from the conversations that you've had with your friends. I'm presuming, are they mainly guys or?
Yeah, all the boys.
Yeah. And it's super interesting because like, at the moment, I'm hosting a male-only Kundalini cohort for 4 weeks. So these men have only had like an activation once, or they've never experienced the energy before. And I just felt called to kind of do that, to hold this space for them to just allow themselves to be. I think so often men have to be put in that position, or they're brought up to be in that position to lead and like constantly be going, and you rarely find that time to do that inner work, to just be still and connect within and find that feminine energy within, because we have both masculine and feminine. And so it's like, it's been really interesting to try and witness it, because for example, one of the guys, I had an intro call before I signed them up, because I was like, I can only take you if you're going to do the prep work before and the integration after. So the prep being, you know, no smoking, no alcohol, no drugs before, like 48 hours before the session, 48 hours after. And then the integration, which is about grounding yourself within the energy, giving yourself rest, nourishment, and honoring your body, because that's when the real magic of Kundalini activation happens. That's when it causes the ripple effects in your life. And you might not notice it on day one because it's creating that ripple effect. You'll notice it week 2. It takes about 2 to 14 days for the energy to fully integrate with you, because you've just been exposed to high frequency energy, and like all of your physical bodies and subtle bodies, like your emotional bodies, etc., are just taking their time to catch up. And so anyway, I was speaking with him and I was like, this is the prep, like of what to do. And he was just saying how, he was like, Kiren, like, I just don't think I can. Like, I can't stop smoking. Like, I need it. And we did a little, almost like a mini coaching session. Like, where's that coming from? Why do you feel like you need it? And then he was giving me his reasons. And I was like, listen, I'm never going to force you into doing something that you don't want to do. But I want you to know that if you are partaking in this, there is an element of letting go of these things that's required. So just see what you feel called to do and let me know. And then it's been really beautiful because he's joined, and last week was like our second week together. And he was like, for the first time in my life, I haven't smoked in 2 weeks.
Jeez.
And we were all so proud of him, so impressed. And one of his other friends was actually doing the Kundalini activation group as well. And he was like, I've known this guy my whole life, and never, ever have I seen him the way I've seen him today.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I feel, is very powerful. Sometimes these changes don't need to be like huge, monumental changes.
Yeah.
They can be so subtle that just completely shift our perspective on our own life and just the way that we behave with ourselves. And that is the true essence of Kundalini activation, but also self-love, I feel.
I've had like friends who, at first, when I was going through my journey of coaching and working on myself, looked at it from an angle and maybe never understood it, and now are going through their own journeys of maybe doing their own therapy, coaching, counseling, whatever it is. I'm noticing subtle changes in regards to my relationships with them, and I'm noticing that, okay, you're a bit more of a joy to hang out with than what you were before. Interesting. I've got a lot of time and respect for that, and it's not saying I don't have time and respect for people who don't. I just feel like people who don't allow themselves to have like this form of conversation to then have those internal conversations.
Totally.
It's more education needs to be thrown out there. And I feel like one of the biggest problems, because I know we mentioned it, like women do a lot of work in this space, and men, it's like not necessarily something that's at the forefront of their mind. I do feel that more acceptance needs to be thrown out there. Yeah. That by doing these things, you're not weak or anything. If anything, it's making you stronger.
Totally.
But it doesn't come across like that, and it is one of those challenges that need to be looked at. I don't know how we make it acceptable. I suppose we just have to just keep doing what we're doing, and but I do believe in years to come there needs to be an avenue where it's not looked bad if a man's doing X, Y, and Z, because I feel like some of the problems stem from what your other guys in your circle are going to say if they find out you're doing therapy, if they find out you're doing Kundalini or whatever it is that you're doing, right? At the same time, there are thoughts that possibly go through a man's mind where it's, what's she going to think if she realizes that I'm working on myself and I was broken once upon a time and I'm still going through this healing journey right now? Like, am I still going to be good enough or not? Like, what are our friends going to say? What are our family going to say? And it's like, that can be quite traumatic. And I feel like sometimes that light doesn't get shone enough. So when people say like, yo, men aren't doing work in this space, there are probably a number of reasons why men may not be able to do the work in this space, because they feel they just can't. They can, but they can't, based on what society and what other people are going to say on the back end of it. And it's very easy for me to turn around and say, I just don't give a shit what people are going to say. I'm going to do what works for me. If you don't like me, that's cool. But if you've been brought up in a society, and I'm taking it away from, like, say, South Asians, I'm talking about in general. If you've been brought up to be a man, whatever that means, doing this kind of stuff will be looked in an angle where there's something wrong with you. And so to do the inner work, the inner healing, the inner growth, that's something that can't ever be tapped into, because the minute you start doing that, you are admitting that there's something wrong with you in the first place. And I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed first before, well, it's just a problem that just needs to be addressed in general, to be honest.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because the first thing that called out to me was just low self-worth. That they feel like they're not good enough to be able to do this work and be loved and accepted and be received for that. And the second thing was kind of what I touched on before, when I was like, when I first started my self-love journey, or like the healing journey, or whatever we want to call it at this point, it was about not being good enough. And I wanted to be good enough. And now it's kind of completely shifted, where I'm like, I already know I'm good enough as I am, shadow parts and all. I'm working to love those aspects. And therefore I'm choosing to heal or progress in my journey to my true self, my highest self, from a place of love rather than a place of lack. And the third thing was, I would find it so attractive, like being within the self-love dating relationship space, it is so attractive to me when a man is like, yeah, I've had therapy. And not just being like, yeah, I've had therapy to be like, I'm so work, or like, yeah, I'm working on myself, like genuinely like, yeah, like, you know, these are the things that I'm working on. And, you know, when you're in a loving dating relationship space, not obviously trauma dumping on you on the first date, it's a very different dynamic. But I think it's so attractive when men work on themselves. Because,
but not everyone thinks like that.
No, they don't. And that's the thing, because if we are to bring it back to dating relationships, if you're single and you want to work on yourself, what's the type of partner that you want to attract? Is it someone that's going to judge you for not being perfect? But I'm sorry, babe, perfection doesn't exist. But if you want the person that's going to look perfect and kind of be that trophy on your arm, then potentially you might attract someone that's lacking a lot of that inner work as well. So they're mirroring exactly what you lack within yourself. And I think even on my dating journey, I love dating in the sense, because I'm like, it always reveals something new about myself, something that I might need to work on, or, oh, I just didn't realize that this is coming up again, or just discovering like who I am again, and being like, oh, that used to bother me before, but now I'm like able to easily walk away and just don't really give a shit.
It's mad.
So I think from that lens, I think that's why it's called work, the inner work, because it is work. It's not always going to be going to the spa and fancy dinners and dating yourself in that sense. It's doing the gritting your teeth, like crying through your pain. It's sitting with that discomfort. It's all of that stuff that doesn't get glamorized, because it's not glamorous.
It's not.
Like, let me tell you, like, I've had, and I want you to share your experience with me. I cannot tell you the amount of times I have been just bawling and like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm fucking exhausted. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, you can stop. You can stop at any point you want. But is that what you want to do? And it's like, no, I have to get through this, because I know what's going to come on the other side is going to be so much greater than the pain that I'm sitting in right now. You know?
No, I've had
it for you.
I've had it in situations, and I it's scary, because I have addressed it on this. I went through. I've had it at times where my mind might take a random turn, and I know it's my self-worth, the negative side of things, trying to creep back in.
Yeah.
But it gets me questioning life in regards to, like, is it worth carrying on trying to like inspire and help people if it's not really doing what you think it can do. And I think for me personally, in those moments when it does get a little bit raw, I just get vulnerable with it, let it come out, but I catch myself and I start reflecting on the good things I have been able to do. And for me, it's always been about impact. So rerouting my mind to being understanding of the fact of it might not be exactly the picture you thought it would be, but you're still painting this picture. So like, you can always improve on it. And so for me, like where I am right now in regards to, let's say, this space, coaching, podcasting, dating, I know I can always get better, and I know I can always be better. And when things start to fall into place, great. It's not the be all and end all in regards to, just because that's a tick now doesn't mean that that can't be elevated one step further. So I've always been on a continuous growth journey, but there have been dark times where, like, I don't like saying it because I don't feel like I've been as dark as other people have been. And it's not that I'm trying to compare myself.
But but it's still valid.
Yeah.
You know?
It sucks. And it's like, fuck man, what's the fucking point? But it's shrugging my shoulders and saying to myself, look, you've been through this feeling before. You know how to get through it. Sit with it and really deep it. Don't act impulsively. Don't just try and be a hero right now and think X, Y, and Z is going to solve it. It's not. And see what happens in its own accord. And that's usually the things I end up doing. Like if I feel I need to reach out to someone who I've previously worked with, I'm going to get on a call or book something in. And just try and find avenues so that I know I've got resources later down the line for when things do get a little bit grey.
That's it. It's like having that toolbox. And that's exactly what I teach my clients as well. It's like having the set of tools that will get you through the dark times as well, whether it's, you know, the journaling or any of the others. Like it's important to have that and constantly look to building that up because it builds your resilience to be like, and that self-trust, like, hey, I've been here before and I have got myself through it. And I think for us in particular, it's really important that we share this, I feel, with people, because people could be looking to us like we're perfect and we don't have down days. And like, I'm here to say, you know, your self-love, your journey, you know, all of it is cyclical. Life is about duality. We're always going to have the ups and downs. Don't let social media fool you into thinking it's like all sunshines and rainbows and like shitting gold bricks out for like in the morning. Do you know what I mean? I don't think sometimes people understand like why some decisions are made. Like when for instance, people might hit me up and say, yo, you're gymming so early. Like, mate, your gains are incredible. No, best believe in my head right now, I might be nursing an injury that I'm just not talking about. Or I am so stressed in regards to the evening that I've got planned with all my clients, etc. that, yo, I have to gym at this time or my sleep's been fucked, hence why I'm up. And there are so many little things you just don't throw those details into. But I want to just circle back to something in regards to what you said. Like you said, you find it very attractive if you found out like a guy was going through therapy, etc. I have I don't know whether or not I fully agree with it. I think you're entitled to have your opinion and where you come from. I feel like some people have made it very clear that if someone needs work, they need to work on themselves. It's like, well, why the fuck are you here then? Stop wasting my time. That's a very big nuance. That's a very big nuance there, right there. Go on, finish what you wanted to say. No,
because I feel like when that comes out, I've been in situations where I've dated people and I can, in the space I'm in, I can acknowledge that maybe things might not be right in the moment. But never will I make someone feel like shit in regards to, you're not ready for this right now, so no. If I feel like you're part of your healing journey, i.e. you're still getting over an ex as an example. Look, where I am right now and what I'm looking for, maybe this isn't the best space for you, so I'm going to take myself out of the equation. But never have I ever tried to make, not that I can acknowledge it, and I apologize if I have, but I can acknowledge that, yo, you need to have work on you. There's something wrong with you right now. Like, that's harsh, especially if someone's opened up to saying, I'm doing X, Y, and Z right now. I feel like that could be a bit peak, and this is why I feel like some guys may not admit or may actually go through stuff, i.e. therapy, because the minute they say it, it's a case of, oh shit, so there is something wrong with you then. All right, fine.
That's so interesting. Okay, right. That's good. At least we can clarify like the nuances here. Listen, if you're at stage 1 of your therapy journey, like leave me out of the picture because you need to go on that journey like sometimes by yourself. I think so many people use relationships and dating as a way, again, to mask and plaster over the pain that you're feeling and as a distraction. And so I would honestly encourage people to reflect and see like, do I have the right energy to invest in this? Or does that energy need to be better placed within myself? So when I do have the time and energy to be here, I can give it 110% because I know where I'm at. And I'll be attracting a partner that is now on my new vibe.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if you are dating someone and they reveal like, I've been going through some stuff, I'm seeking therapy, I would just invite that person to ask the question like, do you think dating is the right thing for you right now? And just pose it that way. There's no need for judgment because it's like, well, this person has been vulnerable enough to share with you that they're going through this thing that's very new for them. You don't have to broadcast it out to the world or anything like that. But if they've shared it with you in a safe space and now you've kind of tarnished that space, it's not going to lead to anywhere fruitful.
Yeah. I feel like in the world we live in right now, there's a lot of impatience.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to look at the camera right now, but I know clients are listening into this and I'm telling them straight up without actually looking at them.
I feel like I'm being told myself. Low-key, I need to deal with patience a lot more.
No, but it's a case of like, you may come across the right person if you're single right now, but if you can't acknowledge that there's reasons why they're not playing the game that you want to play, i.e. following up, responding in a certain manner, making effort, it's because they possibly are doing things right now to work on themselves. But let's not shy away from the fact that like you might be working on yourself right now. You necessarily aren't ready, yet you're putting yourself into these situations where you think you are, but you're not. Like, I think the best solution in all of this is if you feel you're doing work and you're not at 100% to be able to give 100%, don't put yourself in that equation.
Facts.
But the problem we have is that, oh, well, I just have to because all of my friends are doing this and family are saying this. And then it just creates a vicious cycle where you think you're working on yourself, great, but you're still going to try and date, not so great. And you're going to self-sabotage when the right person comes along, not great. You then start again, pissed off with your life, do it again. You then meet someone who's not great and you're like, well, fuck this shit, I'm going to just walk away from it. Or you get too attached and they're not ready for you. And it just gets very, very messy.
It is so messy. And it's almost like trying to lose weight by going to the gym. And so you like go on like this juicing diet. And then you go to the gym and then you're like, oh, now I'm going to eat like 10 Big Macs and like a whole box of donuts. And then you're like, oh, okay, I've put on weight. This doesn't feel good. Now I need to go back on the juicing cleanse. Then you go back to the gym.
Like a yo-yo.
Literally, you're not going to get anywhere. You need to break out of that cycle. And only you have the capacity to make that choice. And I think so often we give our power away to external things. Well, if you did this, then life would be so much better, or da-da-da. We very rarely look inward and be like, actually, I have power and control over my life. And this is the choice that I'm going to make. If someone says something to me, I'll address it there and then. I'll practice what I need to say if I don't feel confident enough to say it. But this is something that's working for me. And if it doesn't, then that's okay. I'm going to just change course, but I have to sit with this first. And I think the thing, when I just circling back to what I was saying before, when I say it's attractive, what's attractive to me about a man working on himself is the amount of emotional intelligence he has, emotional maturity, and fundamentally the emotional availability. Because once you know who you are, and you're still doing that inner work to figure out some pieces, whatever, you will be able to have a better idea of how something is making you feel. And then building the confidence to learn how to communicate that outward,
100%.
To get your needs met, or to be like, actually, if that person can't meet my needs, that's okay. I wish you all the best. I'm out.
Exactly. Also on the back end of that, like the empathy you can provide when you can actually understand where someone's coming from. Like, I'm not here just to like try and look, as a man, I'm here to designed by biology, I suppose, to try and solve all your problems, but I don't have to solve your problems if that's not what you're looking for. And it's like learning those things So important. Like emotional maturity is something I try and gravitate towards. And don't get me wrong, if I feel like that energy isn't there, great, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a case of we're in two different places where you're never going to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah, I'm always going to understand you. That's a toxic place for me to be in, because it's going to make me feel shit about myself later down the line. So maybe this is something that we take a break from, and maybe we revisit it, or maybe you attract someone who's got that level of maturity with you, and it's going to work, and I try and find someone that works for me. But there was one thing that came up in my mind that I wanted to talk about. We probably leapfrogged about it, and it's going to sound weird going back to it, but and it's this idea around, like, say, men and being in the way they are and not doing any self-work and self-development. I can't talk for myself because I've never been in this predicament, but like there are friends I've known, colleagues I've known, people you hear about, celebrities, who have been dealt a difficult hand in regards to their upbringing. And this is where I feel a lot of this stuff comes from in regards to childhood and upbringing. If you're a guy right now where your dad wasn't present, those things that you had to go through, whether it was being the somewhat provider for your family, whether it was being the shoulder everyone leaned on, whatever it was growing up, and something that you've just fallen through with, this is something some guys don't get given a choice. It's just something they just have to deal with, right? They are now conditioned to be the way they are, and so then seeking help isn't going to be something they possibly can just do very freely. It's a very, very uncomfortable thing to do, because they weren't allowed to ask for help once upon a time. It was just no. And so when people sometimes say, yo, men need to do more work, sometimes I feel like what needs to come about from those conversations is, how do I help someone understand that they can, versus saying you need this?
Facts. Yeah. Really interesting that you framed it in that way, because I guess the space that I was coming from was just being in the coaching space, but also the energy healing space. In all these different circles that I've been in, I have visibly noticed a difference in the fact that I see more women there than I do men. And that does make me question, like, why is that? And also, how can I help in that space? Hence why I was doing the male-only Kundalini activation cohort. I think it's so interesting, because I was having this conversation with a really good friend of mine, and he and I were going back and forth about what could be done. And I think, first of all, that sense of brotherhood is so important. Just having that safety to be like, bro, like, I'm not feeling good, like, and I don't know what to do. And if they're like, and this is the key here, making sure that this person has enough emotional intelligence to actually receive what you're saying.
That's the difficult part, because I feel like I've got boys who are very emotionally intelligently switched on, and I've got others who are just like, we're still making comments right now, which shouldn't really sit in 2023, 2024. And it's like a case of like, all right, look, I'm not going to say anything more to it. Like, you know where I'm at whenever you want to have a deep convo. And don't get me wrong, deep convos will subsequently arise on the back end of it later down the line, but that could be a little bit too late into the process in regards to things you want to try and keep up with right now, i.e. dating. But you're right, that emotional maturity and that intelligence, I shouldn't say is a must. It should be something that people actively work towards. It's just interesting when it's not there and you see. And
I think that space has to come from within you. Just like you can't force this particular person to be like, I think it'd be really great if you found the time to speak to someone, or like even listening to certain podcasts, not those podcasts, that spread more drama and hatred than is necessary, but like self-development podcasts. But it has to come from within you. And also, I was going to say, the thing that I picked up the most, Pri, is like, this is why, like, the number of, trigger warning, can I? It's like male suicides are higher, because there is not enough people speaking out about how they feel. So it's like, how can more men make other men feel more comfortable in this space? And I think that is the evolution. And I would really love to see that evolve a little bit more, where we can then come together and just continue spreading more of that high vibe energy, and just like become better connected to ourselves and then each other. Because I think there are certain conversations like feminism and, misandry, where it's like, completely off topic, but it's like men versus women, and it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's like, I can see you're hurting, but I don't know what you need as a man, because that's not my lived experience, in order for you to feel better. And so it's like, as a man, I feel like only you can offer that to another man. Do you know what I'm saying?
So this is like part of my self-discovery I had, and I talk about it in terms of like, I made pain and being unworthy my best friend. The comfort levels that come from what you got brought up with. So for a guy who's had to just deal with so much stuff as a child and not really been asked, didn't ask for any of it, had to grow up a lot early, the pain that person had to deal with, and I'm trying to visualize it right now, like holding this massive boulder, and you've got cuts and bruises, and you've normalized that right now.
Yeah.
The minute someone takes that off you and tells you, no, we can plaster that shit up and we can like heal you, that's completely scary, because all you've ever done is just carry this shit your whole life.
Yeah, you don't want anyone to touch you.
So like, yeah, don't tell me right now that, yeah, I can take this down and everything's all good, because, yo, for the last 20, 30 years, this is all I've ever done. You don't know what it was like. So for me, this is normal. I'm going to be a brute. I'm going to be rugged around the edges, because if I become soft, I'm weak all of a sudden, because when I wanted to be soft, that was something I couldn't ask for. I had responsibilities to deal with. And so I feel like there is this area of, yes, I feel men should slowly working to get into this place where they can become more emotionally intelligent and mature, and it will help later down the line. But there also has to be this acceptance from both ends, in regards to whether they're your friends or your partners or guys that you're dating, etc., that there are genuine reasons to why some guys are in the positions they are in, mentally, physically, emotionally, and accept them for who they are versus trying to create a problem that they need to change to become better, because maybe in their mindset right now, they are the best version of themselves because this is all they've ever known. And for me, working through pain, getting told that, yeah, it's okay, good, like that motivated me. That was my driving force until I realized it didn't have to be. And that's when I broke down and I was like, oh shit, my life has changed. I don't have to do that anymore. But for such a long time, like, if I failed, great, I'm going to go back harder. That was my mindset. And that it didn't have to be like that. Like, I did really well. Yeah, it's going to go soon. Let me just crack on with the next thing. It doesn't have to run like that. For some people though, they're still stuck in that mindset. So
yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. And I don't think this, like, no one's healing journey should be anything that's forced, like, ever. It's your choice, because you have to do the work. No one's going to give you a magic pill and be like, here, take this. All of your pain is going to go away. You're going to not have any more trauma. No, it takes intentional work. And I think the question is, like, are you happy? Are you happy carrying all of this shit? And if the answer is no, then, you know, what's the best that can happen? Not what's the worst, because you could always go back to carrying all of that stuff if you really wanted to. What's the best that can come from this? If you decide to, you know, sit in that space and be held by someone that can actually guide you and support you in a very loving and wholesome way, and try and help you connect back to that part of yourself that did want love, that did want comfort, because you are worthy of all of that.
Yeah,
you know?
I hear you. And the only reason why I talk about this stuff is because I look at it from, like, say, I've said it, and I've slandered my dad so many times on this podcast. I don't mean it, but I feel like his emotional intelligence once upon a time, and even sometimes, is very, like, not there. But, like, I'm gonna say over the last year, the changes I've seen in that man in terms of just being emotionally more available and stuff, just in general life, it's like my dad's like. He's not an old man, but like he's a geez, but he's in his 60s. So it's like he's probably gone through so much stuff where he's just conditioned a certain way. And it's not like he can't change, but like he's also lived this life where it's worked for him. So we have to respect the fact that, like, some people may never change their ways, and we have to learn to accept that they may never change their ways, but also understand that they may not be doing it from a place of malicious intent. It's just what they're accustomed to, and like, if we are more emotionally intelligent and mature enough to accept that, we can then start to try and find ways and navigate our relationships where they can be better than what they currently are. But
Yeah, completely. And honestly, it's so interesting because I kind of echo that. With my dad, there was so much time that, like, when in my younger years where I was trying to change him in the sense of, like, I want our relationship to be like this. Like, can you give me this or whatever? And, you know, I'm so proud of both of my parents, but I've seen so much change in my dad where he is able to open up slightly about his emotions. And he kind of said to me, like, I know you want me to be like this, but this is the best I can give. I can't give anymore because of, I just can't. I don't know how. And I'm okay with that. And I kind of need you to be okay with that. And I was like, you know what, Dad, the fact that you even said that says so much. And like, it's just beautiful, I think, when you're both grown adults and you can have that conversation, because it's so different when you're in that child-parent power dynamic. It's completely different.
Makes a big difference.
And you're right. Like, their lived experiences are different. They've gone through completely different traumas than what we have to a different extent.
Oh, life was different back then.
Totally. Like, it was about survival, fending for your entire family. Like, I don't know about you, but if I had to look after like 6 or 7 people in my family, I would be stressed, boy.
And imagine if you can never say anything about it. You have to just keep your mouth shut about it because it was the norm.
Yeah, and it's your duty. And it's this stuff that I think our generation is really trying to unpack, to be like, we don't have to do this anymore. And putting in those boundaries in place and just being like, you know, we can soften a little bit. It's okay.
But it's also having that understanding of where people have come from as well. And
and the compassion.
Like I told you, look, we didn't even get to some of the other things I wrote down here, but this is what happens on the podcast.
No.
This is what happens. I told you. It goes off tangent, but this has been
so good.
Hella powerful. You said you were going to plug yourself in.
Yes.
So here we go.
Yes. Okay, so to find me on Instagram, it's at In a Glow with Kiren. And then on TikTok, it's actually at The Modern Couple Official, because TikTok don't want me to be great and change my name. So
you could just make another account and just...
No, but then I have to transfer anything and I just can't be bothered. But
we don't want to hear excuses out here.
I'll make it happen. But yeah, like, if anyone wants to reach out to me, they have any questions, they want to work with me directly, you want to sign up to the Self-Love Bootcamp, you want to join a group or one-to-one Kundalini activation, I'm your girl. Like, this space is very much one to support you wherever you are in your journey. It's not a place of judgment. It's a place where you can feel safe and come back home into yourself and ultimately unleash the magic within. Definitely.
No, it's been a pleasure. I feel like I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I knew it was going to be something like this regardless, but you definitely hold great space, and I'm hoping more and more men come towards you. I'm not saying that it's just women only, but the conversation we've had, if there were 10 versions of me outside this door right now, I'd be like, yo, just go speak to her if you're going for anything, because she seems like she can hold that space. And thank you for coming through.
Thank you. That means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again for listening. It's been your boy, Uncle Pre. It's always a pleasure to be in the studio and record with my guests. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And if you like stuff like this, please do like, comment and subscribe. It helps me take the podcast to a place where I can definitely bring in more people that are going to resonate with you, whether it's their stories, whether it's their journey, whether it's just something that they're going through right now. So definitely like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. And much appreciated you staying in here. I love everyone that comes through, and I love all the comments and feedback that I get, so keep that coming through. It's been your boy Uncle Pre, and I'm signing out. Peace.